everyone in America is going to say that, but really liked how those guys were communicating and kind of coaching each other up, and excited to get back out there this afternoon for our first kind of quote-unquote real practice. We anticipate everybody being here. We'll have one young man due to an administrative error that will not be out there for the first couple practices. That was not his fault. That was an administrative oversight, I would say, and something that he's getting taken care of. He's already in town, but we're taking care of that, and everybody else will be on board and ready to rock and roll. So we'll take questions.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Gary.
Mark, you mentioned the 40 newcomers, and even though you have a veteran quarterback coming back, EFO in the secondary, a lot of key players returning, do you go into this year really every year with still an unknown factor when it comes to the Ducks and how things will materialize in the fall?
Absolutely, and Gary, that's something we try to do no matter how many returners are back. And it is funny when you look, especially offensively, since you brought that up, our color coordination on our depth chart it's unbelievably young, and that's exciting. That's a good thing. And we're sitting there the other day kind of going through things, and when you look at all of the young depth, the young talent, it's exciting. It's unproven, but it's exciting, and I don't think we've been this deep, certainly at receiver, in a long, long time. Now, right now, their names on a board and guys that we think are going to be good, and now we just go out and compete. And the same is true for the offensive line, where you have a lot of guys that maybe have played. There's nobody etched in granite up there. Those guys have to go out and compete every day. Same with DB, D-line. But we just want to push these guys as much as we can and see where they land. All right, thank you.
Mark, second year as the head coach. I'm back here. How have you restructured things? What did you learn from last year about how you want to streamline or change things this year? How much difference will there be?
I think the normal year-to-year differences. I think every single year you're going to tweak something, whether it's your scheme, how you develop players, both from a physical standpoint and a mental, psychological standpoint. We're tweaking those things constantly. Learned a million things. And as I've said many times, if you do something a second time, you should be better, you should be more efficient, and there's no exception with me.
You had mentioned in the spring that the new summertime, you guys were able to kind of look over some practice a little bit more than in the past. Did that yield any results that you think going into fall camp you can see a few more of the guys or anything like that?
It's not the changes in the summer weren't really from a practice standpoint. Now, there's some rumor that some schools have done that, which is illegal. But you can basically, what you could do is take roll. In the past, everything in the summer was voluntary, and so you could walk around and go, "Was Andrew here?" But now you could say Andrew was here or Andrew wasn't here. But you couldn't do anything from a practice standpoint with a ball, with any kind of football equipment. But you could directly talk, with Rad, hey, is our players A, B, and C doing X, Y, and Z? But other than that, would there be a significant difference? I don't know. Probably not much. Excellent.
What are your expectations for Thomas Tyner as into his kicker?
To get better, to get a fuller understanding, and I think Thomas is kind of one of those guys that kind of dips his toe in the water and kind of goes, okay, I get it, now I can cut it loose. It's very natural for him as a ball carrier. The guy's an excellent protector. He's an excellent blocker when he's totally cut loose. He just needs to have a little bit more confidence in what he's doing. Part of that is experience. The guy's a young guy, and seeing things for a second, third, fourth time, he'll do nothing but get better. But he, along with Byron Marshall, I think are two excellent all-purpose backs. They both can run, catch, block. They're smart. They're tough, and we like that combination a lot.
Yeah, Coach. Right here, Mark. Clearly, you have some name players back, some veterans. Like you said, a lot of newcomers. As you look at your depth chart, can you talk about the receiver position and then the secondary position? Each of them have starters back, but as you look at your, perhaps those are some work areas for this team. Can you talk about each of those positions? Who are some players who you anticipate will rise to the occasion?
That's always hard to say. I anticipate someone will rise to the occasion, and I'm not trying to duck any question. We just go out there and you try. There's a fine line between anticipating and predetermining, and we don't want to predetermine anything. It might end up that 3 tight ends end up being our greatest combination of 11 guys, or 2 tailbacks and 3. So we just kind of force feed everybody, both the young guys, the newcomers, the newcomers that haven't taken a snap of any kind, or the younger guys, the returning guys from spring ball, whether it's Carrington, Devin Allen, that kind of category of guy, along with a more proven type of guy in Keenan Lowe. But then that whole young group of tailbacks is going to introduce another dimension, just of how fast it appears that they learn. Just watch them in walkthrough today. So we don't want to predetermine anything. We're gonna force feed the heck out of all these guys and just kind of see how it plays out, and then you start to pare that down once games approach. We'll have more scheme in every phase, offense, defense, and special teams in the first week than we'll have for any game. Just that's how kind of installation of things work. And so as you do that, some guys, they kind of slam into the wall, some guys kind of grind it out, some guys are great, and so you just kind of have to predict that a little bit as well.
Hey Mark, you had to discipline Farrell Brown last year at the end, and he showed flashes before that. How did he respond this offseason, and is he ready to go for this camp?
Farrell's been awesome. He's been awesome. That guy, and again, relative to what transpired, that guy has been great. One of my favorite moments of the spring was him texting me his GPA, texting me his computer screen of the GPA, and I talked to him in the spring about I want to stand on a podium somewhere and cry over that guy's story and tell that guy's story, because he's grown up. He's still got a lot of growing up to do, and that's part of our job. And but he's been awesome. We expect big things out of him.
Hey Mark, you're talking about new guys a little bit, and one of those newer guys that's an interesting case is Jonathan Lloyd, and just how has he been making that transition from basketball to football, which he obviously hasn't played in many years?
Yeah, hopefully he'll make a big stride. He did an awesome. The guy had a great attitude in the spring, but you could tell that he hasn't played football for 5 years, and it's not like he's showing up and playing intramural flag football, and you show up playing elite level Division I football, and there's rust, there's uncertainty, which then makes him slower than he really is, just in how he plays. And so over the summer, hopefully that's he's kind of got some steel wool out and scrubbed out and he's to go. But a great positive attitude out there, a guy that you can see everybody likes to be around and work with.
Me? Yeah, Coach, with Ifo, Grasu, and Mariota coming back, did you see, would you comment on the psyche of the team, knowing not just the talent, but the idea that they wanted to come back and achieve? Has that really affected, or have you noticed the psyche of the team improving?
Probably so. I haven't noticed, a total, gross improvement, but I guarantee that a second team whatever, a third team whatever, that was partially in kind of sat up and took notice of that. Because those guys, particularly Marcus, of what that guy turned down, everybody knows what happened there. And so if a guy's that kind of teammate, that kind of person, that guys take notice. And certainly it's I think a point of pride for our program that all those guys are back and want to leave on their terms, so to speak.
Hey Coach, kind of piggybacking on that idea, what are your thoughts on the NFL implementing a limit to underclassmen draft reports?
It'll be interesting. I'm for anything that gets these guys better information, and for that whole process, the review process has gotten better. I mean, it used to be they'd give, 90 guys first round grades, and I'm not real good at math, but that doesn't add up, right? So by the time you get to the third round, that's 270 guys that have 1 through 3 grades, and that's just underclassmen. That's not, the guys that are coming out. So that process has gotten better. It'll never be perfect. I mean, it's kind of like recruiting, that'll never be perfect. But to get better information in their hands or in front of them as a part of that decision-making process is better. I don't know if this is necessarily it, but we'll find out.
Coach, what are your thoughts on how the Oregon was picked to win the Pac-12 this year? How do you think that plays into the psyche of the team going into the season when Oregon was selected for that?
Well, it's just like last year, right? It's great to talk about on August 4th, but it doesn't matter, and we had a great discussion about that last night, about our culture, our process, everything that we're all about, and it doesn't involve looking up and seeing who's taking note. We know that we're going to have, a ton of media coverage, and that's awesome. That's great. It's great for you guys to talk about. It's great for the fans to talk about. It's absolutely, I mean, do we want to be in that discussion? Absolutely, and that's fine, but it doesn't matter. When we go to meetings, when we go to train, that, totally locked in on our deal, that's what matters. And, we can look back at Stanford, we can look back at Arizona, and if there's somebody who's maybe yawning and looking the wrong direction, they'll be put in line right quick.
During the spring, going back to Tyner, Scott Frost had said that Tyner had looked like a guy who learned how to practice during the spring. And now coming into the fall, you guys got all of last season and the spring under the belt. What's the difference with him mentally going into this season, just from maybe a dedication and just the way he approaches practice standpoint?
I think part of it is that. I think most of it is just confidence. When guys, there's some guys who just show up and just go 100 miles an hour, period. That's just their deal. And then they run into the brick wall and they say okay, that's not the right way. Okay, let's find a different way to go. And then there's guys that kind of feel their way through it, and they need total confidence to then have a maximum performance. And he's a little bit more in the second category. And that's not a bad thing. That's how he is. But he did absolutely grew up in how he worked, watching probably a guy like Marcus, watching a guy like Ifo, watching a guy like Keenan Lowe and how they practice. And then part of it's just experience. Again, the second, third, fourth, fifth time you do something, you should be better, faster, more efficient. And that's starting to happen. And that's the scary thing with that dude is he's got a ton left in him, which is
It seemed like one of the themes during the spring was that the offensive and defensive lines had made an effort to get bigger and stronger. When you reviewed the spring film, did that show up?
Well, definitely, yeah. We didn't have to review the spring film. You can just look at them and look at the weights, and then, yeah, we got bigger. I think for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, we maintained our athleticism, maintained the athleticism of what we need from certain positions on the O-line, certain positions on defense. But anytime you can be a bigger, faster, stronger version of yourself, that's better. And again, part of that is confidence.
Coach, wanted to get your thoughts on the new college football playoff format, and also will that affect your approach at all coaching this season?
It won't affect it too much, and obviously when we get toward the end of the season, hopefully we're in that mix and we'll make some adjustments, but not too differently from how it's been over the last several years. As far as the college football playoff, I think it's a little bit better maybe than what it was. I think the BCS, got 1 and 2 right most of the time, but then 3 and 4 were mad, and then the guys at the end, the tail end of the non-BCS bowl, or of the BCS bowls were mad, and that's not going to change. Now 5 and 6 are going to be mad, and then the teams left out of the, what are they called, this New Year's 6 or whatever, they're going to be mad. The next two will be mad. I think that's, again, it's great for the media, it's great for college football as far as the hype. I think we still have a ton of heavy lifting and heavy demolishing to do on the path to the playoff, making every conference's path the same, which, fair, unfair, good, bad, indifferent, it's not the same. And so that, there's still a little bit of work to do there.
Mark, with so much riding on keeping the quarterback healthy, will you be holding your breath a little bit every time Marcus takes a hit? And is there anything practically that you found you could do maybe to help him stay healthy?
Well, yeah, that's a fine line. I think it's the last 7 years where, don't quote me on that, it's either 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. where the national championship team has had, a healthy back all season long. And so there's an element of luck in there. There's an element of, what you said, whether it's schematically doing things. And then there's another angle of you can't have that mindset, going out there of, hey, get 4 yards if you can, but take 3 3/4, okay. We just never want that to run through his mind, and Marcus can't play like that. That's not his deal, and we don't want anybody playing like that.
Mark, Ty Griffin's transferring in from Georgia Tech as a quarterback there. Will he play quarterback here? And if so, does he have to sit out this year?
He does. Yeah, he will be playing quarterback, and he has to sit out the mandatory, transfer year. So he'll have a 1 year, as he'll be total, on the team, everything full speed, except he can't play in games. And then he's starting out a quarterback.
Mark, just with Devin Allen, obviously everybody knows his track speed and that sort of thing. Is he a guy that can play football in terms of all the things required of a receiver? And is he also somebody that can step in and fill into the big play type of receiver?
Absolutely. Devin, got a little nicked up last year during fall camp and was having a great camp and just didn't work out. But Devin is a tough dude, man, and that's a high hurdler that can do what he does. That's tough. It's not just run down a lane and being fast. You gotta have a little something to you, because you don't always jump over the hurdles, right? And when you learn hurdles, it's not just sunshine and roses. But he is a tough dude. He's a great blocker. He's a great competitor, which translates over to special teams a ton, which he's been great on that all throughout training. And then with the ball in his hands, he's really good as well. So I think it's just a matter, again, that's kind of one of those guys that they're not proven, but we're really excited about.
Mark, kind of going, Austin was asking about Marcus. Do you have to strike a balance between having one of the best players in the country and wanting him to be the focal point of everything and not over-relying on him too much in case he does get hurt again? Can you over-rely on Marcus?
That's a great question and a great problem as well. Marcus takes care of so many of those other things, and for all the stuff that externally he's exposed to, he just does such a great job of handling all that. And it is never an issue. It is literally never an issue. The only issue with him last year is we had to adjust a couple meetings, and the scheduling of meetings because of his course load. But that will not be an issue this year. But no, I don't think you're relying too heavily on your first team guy. I don't think that's really how you look at it. You're going to develop the heck out of everybody else. But I don't think it's necessarily, you don't sit around having all these doomsday scenarios. Do you plan for them? Absolutely. But planning for them, the best thing you can do to plan for them is to prepare the heck out of that next guy, just like he's the number one guy. And how we practice and the number of reps those guys get, I think we're probably the closest in terms of 1s to 2s to 3s in terms of getting those guys a ton of reps. Those guys get a lot more reps in our system than most others by a long way.
Mark, for the first time in a long time, Coach Aliotti won't be around on a day-to-day basis. Can you kind of talk about something that you learned from him with your years with him, and what you implement on a day-to-day basis that you've learned from him over the years, in the way you coach and your coaching style? Anything?
There's a question I did not anticipate. Lope dog. I don't know. I'd have to think about that for a second. I think his DP and him and that whole crew of guys did a great job for a lot of years and didn't get a ton of credit, kind of being overshadowed by a lot of tangible numbers offensively. But I don't know if there's not just jumping into mind right now. I apologize. I'll think of something. I'll tell you later.
Hi, Coach. Hey, I was just curious, looking back on your first year as head coach, how would you rate your coaching style? Do you think you were perhaps too tough, too easy, or just right? And any adjustments you plan to make this year?
Too tough. There's got to be more answers. So I'll take D or E. We got to get better in every phase, and that's not. Again, it's like asking questions about Chip versus me or Nick versus DP. It doesn't matter. It's who, next is better. And were we perfect last year? Absolutely not. Were we miserable? Absolutely not. And as soon as you're not perfect, we're at a place where if you're not perfect, then the next row is very, very much up for debate, and that's great.
Okay,
For
Coach,
you. For you. No.
Segueing off of that, you 11-2, very good season, but you want to be, you want to win every game. So, why are you optimistic that your defense and offense is going to improve from last year in order to become perfect? What are some of the areas where you are optimistic about the changes that are going to need to happen, are going to happen?
Seeing our players and seeing our staff work every day. That's it. That's it. We don't sit around going, let's be perfect, right? We talk about, you need to do this better. This is the step to do this better. This is the process. This is the process. And that's it. Seeing those guys work every day, knowing the kind of talent that we have, both our coaching staff and our players. Again, as soon as you lose one game, it doesn't matter if it's on the last kick of the national championship game or losing 2 games last year, how we did. As soon as you lose one game, then everything's up for debate, and that's great. And that's fine. But as long as our guys trust our process, believe in our culture, which they've been awesome, everything else takes care of itself.
Mark, right here, with a couple of is there any update with Johnny Reagan and his eligibility for this season?
Not yet. Nothing that I can talk about. There's some good and some bad in that realm, but we're not supposed to really talk about it like it's some Jason Bourne state secret. But he's another guy that we're very excited about. The young linebacking crew is a great-looking group of guys. Have had very, very positive reports across the board, whether it's academics with RAD in the strength and conditioning realm, or the veteran players and their retention and their football knowledge. So that's another group of guys that very excited to see develop.
Hey, Mark, can you talk about Jeff Locke, where he is right now in his development? How much better quarterback is he now compared to last year at this time? Clearly you have the number 1 guy, but there's going to be somebody who might be needed as a number 2 guy, a quarterback, and he played some last year. Can you just talk about Jeff Locke in that respect?
Yeah, that's one thing that I think got a ton of play that I never understood. We have a ton of confidence in our backup guys. We have a ton of confidence in Marcus. He's really good, and I think if that's one thing about that position, the backup quarterback, they're always the answer, right? They're always the greatest player ever until they're in there, and then, oh God, what's wrong? And then, whatever. But that was one thing last year. There was just never any separation between those 2 guys, and that's something you can't fake it, because every single person on your team sees that guy play. And if there's not a definitive separation, that's when it becomes an issue. It can become an issue on your offense, can be an issue in your locker room if there's not a total difference. Just separation between the 2 and go. And that's one thing that just never happened last year, and it never happened this spring for whatever reason. And so, we'll continue to develop those guys. Jeff had a really good spring. Hopefully had a great off season. And we'll go out and compete like heck during fall camp. He's really smart. I think he's another guy kind of going back to the Thomas Tyner confidence scale. He needs to trust himself a little bit more and believe in himself a little bit more. And we joke about that a lot. But he's a kind of along the Nate Costa-ish kind of production scale, probably a little bit faster. Don't tell Nate I said that. No, he is a little bit faster. But I love the guy.
Is there one more question anyone saving? This is the last question for Coach Helfrich, and then we'll get Marcus up here.
Yeah. Hey, Coach. Could you talk about Byron Marshall's experience last year, getting into that, starting role, getting a lot of carries, and how that's going to benefit him this year, and what's his next step?
Consistency is his next step. I think part of that with Byron is conditioning. Part of that is confidence. Part of that is total overall scope knowledge of the system and just cutting it loose. But that, that only comes again with great preparation. And he's another guy that can practice. He can practice a little bit better. And we've had many discussions. We're not telling tales out of school right here. But he's also a guy that has great ability across the board. He's a fantastic receiver. He's a great, between the tackles runner. He's a great protector. And now we just need to put that together on a consistent basis. And again, those two guys, Thomas and Byron, they're really a lot more similar than they are different, and a ton still left in the tank.
All right, thanks.